Armory deck Origins Hala has just been fully revealed. LSS showed off the deck via some gameplay, as well as releasing the entire list online so that we can take it all in. Should you pick it up, and is this product the best Armory deck they've ever released? Let's talk about it. First things first, I am not going to bury the lead. I think this product is going to do more for the Warrior class and for Armory decks in general than any previous Armory deck up until, at the very least, Gravy Bones. Introducing a brand new class is quite impactful to the overall metagame, but this one is going to perhaps do more for two different formats compared to that one did for one. So why is this such a big deal, and where did LSS go right? First, let's talk about the product itself, and to understand it, we need to talk about Hala. Hala first appeared in Flesh and Blood via the Hala Golden Helm Mentor card that came out all the way back in the day in the old school Blitz deck, the Dorinthia versus Rhinar Classic Battles Blitz deck. And from that point forward, we knew her as this side character, the trainer and mentor of Dorinthia. But here, she gets her own full treatment as Hala, Blade Saint of the Vow, a warrior hero with 4 intellect and 40 health that has action, pay 3, tap, sharpen target sword you control, and go again. Now, to understand sharpen, of course, you need to know that it is putting a +1 counter on the sword itself that you're sharpening, and then at the end of the turn, you remove all +1 counters from that sword. So that is an important distinction to make, that the sharpen effect at the end will pull every counter you've placed on something or earned on that weapon, and that does include like Dorinthia's Dawn Blade. But to go further into this hero, you need to also understand this Zenith Blade. And Zenith Blade is the signature weapon, the Hala specialization. It is a warrior weapon. It's a sword, 2-handed, and it attacks for 3. It says once per turn action, pay 1 to attack. But it also says if this has been sharpened this turn, your first attack with it this turn gets go again. So it can go multiple times, or gain go again essentially, and then be swung a second time if you have created a flurry token. And this is where we really need to understand the mechanics of the deck itself by starting with the flurry token. And the flurry token says this. First of all, it's a warrior token and it's an aura. And it says when you activate a weapon attack, destroy this, and you may attack with the weapon twice this turn. So in other words, if you've created a flurry token, you can swing Zenith Blade if you've also sharpened it twice a turn. And that's the key point to understand with regards to how this whole deck functions. But before we go into the deck itself, very quickly, here are the 4 pieces of equipment so that you can take it all in. The most impactful is going to be the chest piece, but let's start at the head and work our way down. Anticipating Gaze blocks for 2, and it has Blade Break, so the moment it blocks, it will shatter. But when a sword attack you control hits, you can remove a +1 counter from the sword. If you do, you can destroy this helmet and you can draw a card. So that, card that you've played to put the +1 counter on will recoup itself if you break the helmet. And it's all contingent upon your sword attack hitting. That is the first piece of equipment. The second piece, and perhaps the most impactful, is the legendary in the box, Paragon Plate. It blocks for 2, it has temper, and it says attack reaction, tap this Paragon Plate. Remove a +1 counter from an attacking sword you control, gain a resource. So if you have a card that puts a counter on, this effect essentially turns that point of value putting the counter on into a resource itself. That's a really key point when understanding how the deck functions as we go. Then, of course, you have a couple more pieces. You've got Reverent Rare Brace or Rear Brace. Blocks for 2 with Temper, so it can technically block for 3. And if you'd sharpen a Zenith Blade, instead you can pay 1, destroy this, and sharpen it twice, basically. And then after that, you have Silver Stride Dodgers, which also has Temper. This one, Temper 1. And if you control a Flurry token, this gets +1. So it's essentially Temper 2 while you have a Flurry token. So once you understand how this deck functions and really how important it is to make a flurry token, then you're going to start to see how the deck works and why it's so important for the warrior class. Now here's the deck, and we'll talk quickly about some of the new cards that we have in the deck so you can fully understand how this hero wants to play, but this is not a full guide on how to play the deck, nor is it a full breakdown of all the cards. Really what I want to show you is that, one, this deck is quite functional and seems to be, on the face of it so far, pretty synergistic and pretty good, as well as the benefits that this new type of product, and by type I mean the new implementation or the way they built it, is so beneficial to warriors, to Hala, and to formats. So let's take a look at a couple of these new cards. You've got cards at the Majestic in the deck like Brimming Blade, which is a 1-cost 3-block warrior action that says sharpen target sword you control twice. Now keep in mind that sharpening is essentially like 2 points of value in this case because you're sharpening twice. Each sharpen is 1 point of value because it's +1. But if you do have go again on the sword and then you have a flurry token, then sharpening is actually, in this card, is like 4 points of value because each sharpen is going to apply on your sword twice. So if you can turn a +1 into a +2, then this card is like a 1 for 4 with some maybe extra added benefits. And this is one of the methods of sharpening, and the deck is all really centered around sharpening, and you can see that with the bread and butter Edict of Steel. This is at common, so it can be played across all formats, including Silver Age. Edict of Steel costs nothing. It says sharpen target sword you control, and then if it has 1 or more +1 counters, create a flurry token. The yellow asks you to have 2 +1 counters. The blue asks you to have 3. So Brimming Blade, pitching a card floating 2 resources plus Edict of Steel, basically allows you on a 3-card hand, a blue plus these 2 cards, to swing the sword twice guaranteed. Play those 2 cards pre-buff. You're going to get 3 sharpens on there. You're going to get the sharpen 2 on here, sharpen 1 on Edict of Steel. You have 3 times you've sharpened, and then you can swing the sword paying 1 each time. This will give it go again because it's been sharpened, and then the flurry token allows you to swing twice. So keep a blue, play Brimming Blade, play Edict of Steel, and you're going to swing a 6 into another 6. So that's a 3-card 12, which is a 4, a 4, and a 4 if you're thinking in Briar math. So all of a sudden, we have a warrior that can swing a 3-card 12. That feels pretty solid to me. I don't know how it feels to you. That's not even considering 0-cost attack reactions. But it gets better because we also, within this deck, have a 1-cost +3 attack reaction that has a dual function to be able to discard and create a flurry token. And so this card now, even though it only blocks 2, has dual modes. You can choose to play it as a +3 in the deck. You can choose to keep the instant discard and make a flurry token on demand. The fact that a lot more of these cards are now flexible means that you have more play into more heroes. And I'm just going to skip over here because I want to point this out. This is a product line that still doesn't have a sideboard. Would I have loved to see them include Arcane Barrier 3? You know I would. That plus adding a booster pack into these products, to me, would make this a perfect line of products. But they've gone a little further down the path because they've given this warrior the ability to deal with some amount of instant speed damage, arcane damage, at instant speed. Toe the Line is a 0-cost warrior instant that essentially acts like, take it on the chin. The next time you'll be dealt damage this turn, prevent 2, and if you prevent damage this way, create a flurry token. So just like Take It on the Chin was beneficial to the warriors that ran it, this is key beneficial because it creates a flurry token, and it also lets you play into like some amount of arcane damage. It's not perfect, and I'm not sitting here saying this is a home run, but this is a much bigger step in the right direction than any of the Armory decks that we've gotten in the past, I would say, 6 months, going back to like Rhinar or Pleiades or Ira or even Gravy Bones, I think was the best Armory deck looking back at it. We also have D-Reacts in the product as well. Flurry Foot Dance is a 0 for 4 if you have a Flurry token. And it encourages you oftentimes to make a Flurry token off of the back of like discarding or off of, like just generation of Flurry tokens with some of these other cards. And so we have a product here that really does feel more fully fledged and fleshed out than I think anything in recent memory. And even more than that, I feel like this product has the widest range of reach as far as interest or as far as what it can provide is concerned, because you may look at these cards and be like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm not super into the idea of Hala. You can play all of these cards in every other warrior in the game right now. As long as they're legal and classic constructed, you can play all the Majestics, you can play all of these cards, you can even play some of these cards up here and give them a shot. You can try mixing and matching some of these cards in there. You can't, of course, play Hala's specialization, but outside of the sword, the rest of this is totally playable. And it goes a step further than that. You can also play all these commons and rares, and there's a ton of them. Most of the deck is commons and rares. The only ones that are Majestics are Polished Blade and Brimming Blade. Everything else is playable in Silver Age. So if you wanted to take these cards out of this deck and play them in Kasai in Silver Age or Bolton in Silver Age, you can definitely do that. And I'll tell you this right now, if you're looking at like Kasai, the old school Kasai in Silver Age, she is already starting to splash in some of these sharpen effects in her deck right now. This just makes it even more of an archetype that you can lean into. It's quite exciting. You can buy this deck specifically to be able to play more of these package cards in that format, and I think that's very justified to do so. Also, I do want to talk about Polished Blade. It costs you nothing, it blocks for 3, and it's kind of like a pseudo like Blood on Her Hands card, because you can remove multiple +1 counters and give go again, or attack an additional time, or make it cost 1 less. Very, very cool, very powerful as well. Like that is a very solid Majestic that I think a lot of heroes, if they're playing the Polish package, the Sharpen package, I should say, you could just splash this in and try to do these pseudo little combo turns, or like value plays, I guess is a better way to put it, because it gives you value by investing into the overall Flurry creation and Sharpen package. So I am very excited to see how this deck performs on the table. I did not get a copy of this, but I will be buying one the moment that these release, because I am quite excited not just to play this brand new warrior who really does look and feel fairly strong, but also to take these cards into multiple formats and into multiple heroes and try out this brand new Sharpen archetype, because they've really delivered to us a brand new archetype. Now, don't let my hype fool you, because I don't necessarily think this is the perfect product. I do think that there are things that they should do to push this further. First of all, they need to give players a sideboard, and it doesn't even need to be like a bunch of sideboard cards. Really, it just needs to be side equipment. I don't mind if they don't like throw in a full sideboard with a little guide. I think that would be interesting, just make it like aggressive heroes, and then you say put these cards in and take these cards out, or then you say like arcane damage heroes or wizards, and then you just have like these list of cards. You could do that from a product standpoint, and you could splash in like Oasis Respite and Arcane Polarities, dust your hands off and call it a day. But I would rather them just throw Arcane Barrier 3 in the sideboard as 3 pieces of equipment and call it a day. Does it take away a little bit from the like complete package that is the very comprehensive suite of equipment? Maybe to some degree, but I think overall you're giving your players that are buying this, especially if it's a new player trying to jump into the more expensive classic constructed format, you're giving them the ability to engage with this immediately. So I would say they need to do Arcane Barrier 3 as a little sideboard, little pack. You just put it in the thing and just call it a day. I do think that, and I'm hopeful, I don't know if this is the case, I hope they have the little hero fold out page so that you can kind of read up on the deck. And then finally, and I've said this for a couple of different products, and they did it for the most recent Silver Age decks, I love the idea of putting a pack in the box itself. You take a pack of a set that would have some synergy, you put it in the box. Now, it's not a perfect solution. You can't like just say, oh, well, let me just go grab the most recent Warrior set and throw that in there. And so there would be some tweaks, and sometimes I don't necessarily know if it would work. But with a product like this, where it's like a new hero, something that has tie-in would actually be really cool to experience. And it almost feels, with certain products, like an industry standard to include a booster pack if it's for new players. And I do think that the Armory Deck Origins product perhaps targets new players more than just any other Armory deck that you go and grab off the shelf, because this really does give players a full head start, because it gives you a freaking legendary that is like on par with other legendaries. Like, this legendary is stupidly good. Turning a +1 sharpen, like from any of these card effects, like literally this card effect, you take the +1 counter off and it gives you a resource. You can think of this as essentially being like an Edict of Steel that gives you +1 resource back instead of costing you anything. So like, this is a product that is very friendly to new players, and so I'd like to see that new player also have the opportunity to engage with the booster pack product as well. And finally, and this is a big one for me, I would love to see this be a $40 to $50 product rather than MSRP at $60. Now, I will preface that by saying that oftentimes when I go to my local game store, they don't put these at MSRP. They mark them down by like $10. And so I am getting this at like $50 or sometimes less, which is great for me, but I don't know if that's true everywhere. And personally, I think this is a product that warrants that $40 to $50 price tag more than a $60 thing. And maybe there's a margin issue. Maybe from the business standpoint, they price it there at MSRP so that they can ensure that this product does indeed move, and then when it moves, it creates some profit for the LGS. Like, maybe this is an LGS-centric price point, but I would love to see, from a consumer standpoint, this be a little bit lower, a little bit easier to just grab off the shelf and say, yeah, I can justify $40. Especially in this day and age, like, that would be fantastic to be able to point a new player who just got into the game from Silver Age to this product and say, yeah, it's $40, and that is going to do solid at the Armory next week. But I want to hear from you. What do you think about this product, and what are your first impressions of the Armory Deck Origins Hala deck? And if you want me to go deep into this and make a little guide to show you how to play the deck and like what kind of play lines are available to you, let me know that in a comment below. Maybe I'll produce like a little 5-minute thing where I just show you play lines and a nice polished method. If that's something you'd be interested, make the number go to the other number. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching.